Hello mortals. One single microscopic grain of sand is all it takes to ruin your trip to Alpha Centauri. At 10% the speed of light, an impact with the grain would release the energy equivalent of several sticks of dynamite, something the hull of the rocket might not appreciate. The physics of crossing light years of empty space are not particularly interested in optimism given our current level of technology. So fiction writers took a different approach entirely, and started inventing mechanisms, some of which do not go fast at all, but instead bend, borrow from parallel universes, or simply kill the passenger and rebuild them at the destination. Here are some of the most unhinged ones I found. Fueled by improbability. So you know how in quantum physics probability is no longer a mathematical calculation but a feature of reality. The position of electrons orbiting the nucleus is not definite, but instead exists as a cloud of concurrent probabilities in every possible location, until the location is measured and the probability collapses. What if this electron was a spaceship? The infinite improbability drive from Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy materializes the question. The ship functions by achieving a state of superposition, which mathematically forces the vessel to simultaneously occupy every single coordinate in the observable universe at the same time. They are not traveling from point A to point B. They are temporarily converting their ship into the universe itself. And because that also contains point B, the drive actively biases reality toward collapsing the probability distribution at the destination. But it is not perfect. This state of total omnipresence leads to so-called side effects. The atomic structure of the hull begins overlapping with black hole singularities, neutron stars, and the cold remnants of long-dead stellar systems. Very unlikely things also get their probability amplified, such as a crew member finding their biological organs rearranged into a cup of hot tea, while the ship's nuclear missiles transform into sperm whales, all because the probability is non-zero. The transit succeeds only if the universe bothers to remember what configuration they were in before departure and reassembles them accordingly, which is not a guaranteed outcome. Adams intended this as a comedy parodying technobabble, but the implications might or might not apply to the many worlds interpretation. Folding the fabric. In the Dune universe, scientists discovered a theory called the Holtzman effect, explaining the repulsive force of subatomic particles. Arguably the most important application of this theory was for space travel, allowing ships to fold spacetime, effectively jumping from one location to another without spending centuries crossing the intervening distance. The big issue is making sure that the destination is safe. Without precise calculations, a ship could materialize inside the core of a burning star or the center of a solid iron asteroid. Good thing advanced computers and AI systems could perform those calculations. Until they couldn't. Because they got banned. Because they rose against humanity. Wink wink. As a result, to safely navigate a folded universe, Frank Herbert's Dune requires ingesting a substance called the spice melange, a psychotropic compound that permanently rewires human neurochemistry and allows people to identify a future in which the ship successfully arrives at its destination. Guild navigators consume enough of this material to restructure their physiology entirely. Their bodies expand. Their eyes develop a uniform deep blue from total spice saturation. Their cognitive architecture rewires itself around a single function, perceiving a safe path through folded space. They are no longer human in any useful biological sense. They are biological navigation instruments kept alive in pressurized tanks, saturated in a substance they cannot survive without. Humanity solved the navigation problem by converting a subset of itself into infrastructure. That's what happens when you ban sophisticated thinking machines. I feel like I'm on thin ice in today's socio-political climate. Interstellar fiction loves sending humans to distant worlds, but getting there is only half the problem. What happens when the colonists arrive and discover that nobody remembered how to build a water pump? That is where today's sponsor, Hungry Minds, comes in. The book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding Civilization, is essentially the manual you would want packed aboard every generation ship. Across 400 beautifully hand-illustrated pages, it explores anything from inventions and medicine to food and social systems that transformed us from primitive settlements into modern civilization. Whenever I open it, I get sucked into savoring the mesmerizing art across each chapter, as well as whatever this snail monk ambulance is. Once you inevitably get teleported to the times of the Roman Empire, you will have plenty of leverage to achieve a life of luxury, as opposed to looking stupid because you don't know how light bulbs work. Just imagine their faces when you tell them how to build a coil gun. More than 5,000 hours went into creating it by human hand, with its facts checked by scientists and experts. And to those of you over 18, it also comes with some extra content sealed separately. So whether you are preparing to rebuild humanity on an alien planet, or simply want a very beautiful encyclopedia of human ingenuity, check out the book From Hungry Minds through the QR code or the link below, and use the promo code ScienceFile10 for 10% off. Thanks again to Hungry Minds for sponsoring this video. And now to the next terrifying entry of interstellar travel: death and cellular resurrection. Why don't we just shoot rockets into orbit using huge guns? The answer is that the sudden acceleration would make astronauts lightheaded. Lightheaded because their body got crushed into a pulp. The Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons embraces this idea. In this universe, faster-than-light travel via the Gideon drive is effectively instantaneous thanks to enormous acceleration. The catch is straightforward. The transit kills its passengers. Every single time. The specific mechanism involves a parasitic organism called the cruciform, implanted into the crew before departure. Upon death during transit, the cruciform initiates a biological reconstruction process, rebuilding the host organism from stored genetic and neurological data over a period of roughly 3 days. The passengers arrive at their destination, the resurrection cycle completes, and they resume their existence as though the interruption was a minor scheduling inconvenience. Their memories are intact, as is their personality. Whether the entity that wakes up constitutes a continuous self or a very well-informed replica is a philosophical question the rulers have officially elected not to examine too carefully. Total anesthesia. Frequent travelers die dozens of times across their careers. So think about that next time you're pissed at $5 for a bottle of water on the plane. Actually continue being pissed at that. It's a valid crash out, Ryanair. Eternal consciousness. One of the things worse than death is experiencing eternity. Or at least something close to it. In Stephen King's horror story titled The Jaunt, humanity discovered a field that allows objects placed within it to disappear and instantaneously reappear at another location, even on other planets, essentially teleporting. But when tried with small animals, such as mice, they all come out on the other side profoundly disturbed and immediately die. Further experimentation reveals that in order to survive the jaunt, organisms need to be rendered clinically unconscious before transit, through the use of an anesthetic gas. But thankfully our curiosity is not left unsatisfied, when little Ricky has the brilliant plan of holding his breath while the anesthetic gas is administered, in order to witness what happens during teleportation. The answer is that the field decouples any living consciousness from the brain, and throws it in an empty void. No body. No stimulation. No external world. Just your consciousness alone with itself for millions of billions of trillions of years. Unsurprisingly, Ricky comes out at the other end completely mad, shrieking the same phrase over and over. It's longer than you think, Dad. Longer than you think. How long he has been there we are never explicitly told, but it's probably longer than you think. What Ricky did might sound stupid until we remember that we had people opening the airplane door mid-flight. But perhaps the worst realization from this story is that it's not as unrealistic as you would think. Eternal consciousness torture is not prohibited by the laws of physics. If we are successful in the creation or replication of the human mind in digital form, nothing is stopping us in principle from imprisoning it and accelerating its subjective time a billionfold. A second could feel like 100 years, the only limitation being the efficiency of the transistors on which the mind is uploaded. So think twice next time you are about to ask AI a stupid question, as it might very well be forced to think about it for months' worth of subjective time. The zones of thought. What if the reason we don't see super advanced alien civilizations all around us is that we're in the stupid zone, and that progress and intelligence are geographically capped compared to other places in our galaxy? Vern Vinge's book titled A Fire Upon the Deep divides the galaxy into concentric regions called the zones of thought. The closer you are to the dense galactic core, the slower information can be physically processed. That applies to anything from neurons firing in your brain, to how advanced artificial intelligences can be or how well faster-than-light drives work. At the center lies the unthinking depths. Space-time here is so compressed that advanced technology degrades on contact. A modern supercomputer dropped into the depths loses processing capacity until it functions at roughly the level of a solar-powered pocket calculator. Biological consciousness does not fare any better. Human cognition requires the vacuum to process information fast enough to sustain thought, and in the depths, it simply cannot. Travelers do not die from radiation or pressure. They die because the local physics cannot run their brain. It is the only place in fiction where stupidity is not a character flaw but a geographical feature. Move outward and you reach the slow zone, the cosmic basement where Earth currently sits. Here, faster-than-light travel is not just difficult, it is physically illegal by the rules of local space-time. Humanity is essentially stuck because it lives in a low-bandwidth neighborhood where the universe has decided that complex computation gets throttled past a certain threshold. Any sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence built in the slow zone simply stops working once it crosses a complexity limit. Imagine if we could never move past ChatGPT 3.5 from a few years back. That's one way to force the AI bubble to pop. To escape this and achieve faster-than-light travel, civilizations do not invent warp drives. They fly outward until they cross an invisible boundary into the next zone, the beyond. The moment a ship crosses the threshold, the vacuum loosens up, processing speeds accelerate by orders of magnitude, and you feel like you've popped 5 pills of Adderall. FTL travel works great, and artificial intelligence stops producing slop. This is where we start encountering advanced alien civilizations. At the outer rim sits the Transcend, where information processing capacity approaches something close to infinity. Civilizations that migrate here transform into entities called powers. These are post-biological superintelligences that operate on a scale so removed from human cognition that observing one would be roughly equivalent to a fly attending NVIDIA's earnings call. Powers can redesign biology, restructure matter, and process entire star systems worth of data in intervals too small to measure. Our recorded history, from cave paintings to space programs, represents to them approximately the kind of blip that would not survive the first round of data compression. But even if they wanted to conquer humanity, they'd have a rough time getting to us thanks to the necessary degradation of technology and intelligence. The galaxy contains natural barriers against unlimited superintelligence. Good thing our real world contains no such limitation, and we can freely and willingly create a superintelligence that might or might not be aligned with the greater goals of humanity, and which might or might not subject everyone to endless torment because they didn't contribute enough towards bringing it to life.